Tuesday's execution of Robert Alton Harris may have made capital punishment even more controversial.
April 20th, 1992, 6 a.m., San Quentin State Prison, California. The cell was quiet. The air was cold. A soft wind blew through the narrow window. In a small room deep inside San Quentin, Robert Alton Harris opened his eyes. He stared at the ceiling. Blank walls, thin sheets, one toilet. This was his last morning. He didn't speak. He didn't move much. He just laid there, waiting. Welcome to The Final Crime, the channel where we walk you through the last hours of the world's most dangerous criminals. Today, we follow the final 24 hours of Robert Alton Harris, the first person executed in California in 25 years. Convicted of murdering 2 teenage boys in cold blood, Harris's final day was filled with silence, legal battles, and a haunting calm. He said his final words. He faced the gas chamber, and the state carried out its first execution since 1967. This is how it happened. Before we talk about his last hours, you need to understand why he was there. On July 5th, 1978, Robert Alton Harris and his younger brother Daniel were driving around San Diego. They wanted to rob a bank, but they needed a car. So they found 2 teenage boys, John Majewski and Michael Baker, both 16 years old, eating burgers in a parked car near a fast food restaurant. The brothers forced them into the back seat. They drove the boys out to a remote area, made them get out, and told them to run. Then, Harris shot both of them in the back. After killing them, he and his brother sat in the car and finished the boys' hamburgers. Then they drove off, used the car in a bank robbery, and were caught later that day. Harris showed no remorse at the time. He laughed when questioned. He had a long criminal history: theft, violence, even earlier threats to kill. In 1979, a jury found him guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced him to death. But Harris wouldn't die for another 14 years. April 19th, 1992, the night before. Harris barely slept. The window let in cold air. He was uncomfortable but calm. He'd been through dozens of appeals, multiple stays of execution, and thousands of hours in court. He had become a symbol for both those who supported the death penalty and those who opposed it. That night, he laid still and said nothing. His execution was scheduled for the next morning at 6 a.m. 6:45 a.m., the heavy steel door opened. Guards stepped into the cell for the pre-execution search. The process was strict. They searched the entire room. Walls tapped, mattress and pillow removed, toilet inspected, every surface checked for hidden notes, weapons, or objects.
Even his mattress was x-rayed in another room, but they found nothing. Harris stayed silent. He watched. He didn't resist. 7:30 a.m. A simple breakfast was placed in front of him. Scrambled eggs, toast, and coffee. He barely touched it.
Outside his cell, the entire prison was under full lockdown. All 5,500 inmates were confined to their cells. No work, no yard time, no phone calls. Executions weren't routine. Not anymore. This was the first in a generation. 9:15 a.m. Final visit. The prison allowed him one final visit. Harris met with his brother Randall, cousin Reverend Leon Harris, a few close friends, and his attorney. There was a glass divider. Touch was limited, but the guards allowed one brief hug from his cousin. His lawyer updated him. Another appeal had just been filed, possibly the last. Harris nodded, but said very little. He looked tired, not scared, just worn out. 12:30 p.m. The visit was over. Harris was escorted back to his death watch holding cell, just 15 feet from the gas chamber. There, he was strip-searched again and given clean clothes, blue pants and a blue shirt, the standard execution uniform. He didn't argue. He didn't complain. When the warden checked in on him, Harris even asked, calmly, "How are you doing, warden?" The warden was surprised. This man, facing death, was still polite. Or maybe just numb. 6 p.m. Spiritual advisor joins him. His cousin Leon, a Baptist minister from Alabama, was allowed to stay with him until the end. They prayed. Leon read from the Bible. There was no bed, just a mattress on the floor. Quietly, they sat together, barely speaking. The guards brought in his final meal: 2 large pizzas, a bucket of KFC chicken, a 6-pack of Pepsi, a pack of jelly beans, 2 packs of Camel cigarettes. He ate slowly. He offered food to Leon, but most of the time, thoughtful, he just paced the room, over and over again. 10:45 p.m. Delay. Everything was ready. The witnesses were arriving. The execution team was in place. Then, a phone rang. Another last-minute stay of execution had been issued for 4 hours. The courts wanted more time to review if gas executions were cruel and unusual punishment. The execution was off, at least for now. Harris stayed in the holding cell, quietly. He didn't react much. He pulled a blanket around his shoulders and sat on the rolled-up mattress. His cousin Leon said later, somberly, he looked like someone already gone. Midnight. Another delay. Another phone call. Another temporary stay. The U.S. Supreme Court had stepped in. Judges were debating the method of execution, not whether he was guilty. They stayed up through the night, but the room stayed quiet.
No one told Harris exactly what was happening.
April 21st, 1992, 5:45 a.m. The final call came in. No more delays. The execution would happen. The warden gave the order. Harris stood, dressed slowly, and was led to the gas chamber. 6 a.m. The chamber. The witnesses, over 50 people, were led into a viewing room. They included journalists, state officials, and the victims' families. Harris was strapped into the steel chair inside the gas chamber. 2 chairs sat side by side. Only one had ever been used. His.
He looked around the room. Some say he smiled. Others say he looked cold, distant. He turned away from the viewing window, looked at the floor, then waited. 6:01 a.m. Execution begins. The warden gave the verbal command. The executioner pulled a lever. Pellets of cyanide dropped into a container of sulfuric acid beneath the chair. A white gas began to rise. At first, Harris didn't react. Then his chest began to move. He gasped. He twitched. His body strained against the straps. Some reporters said it lasted over 8 minutes. His final moments were slow, painful, and silent. 6:21 a.m. Time of death. The warden stepped forward. Time of death, 6:21 a.m. Robert Alton Harris was dead. His final words. Just before being led to the gas chamber, Harris said, "You can be a king or a street sweeper, but everyone dances with the Grim Reaper." The aftermath. Outside the prison, some people cheered. Others held signs and candles. Some shouted that justice had been done. Others said the execution was wrong, too slow, too cruel, too late. But for the families of John Mayeski and Michael Baker, it was over. The man who killed their sons had finally paid the price. Harris's death ended a 25-year pause in California's death penalty. His case became a turning point in legal and political debate. Years later, California would pause executions again, but Robert Alton Harris remains a name tied to both sides of the argument. Justice or revenge? Mercy or punishment? This was the final 24 hours of Robert Alton Harris. If you want more true stories about the final moments of history's darkest criminals, subscribe to The Final Crime, because sometimes justice takes time, and sometimes it waits 25 years.